Recruiting. If you don't have the guts for it, get out of it, because the Longhorns and recruiting right now are going deep undercover. Lots of news breaking today as it relates to recruiting. Some of it good news for the Longhorns, some of it not so good news. Jerry Hamilton alongside, I'm Bobby Burton. This episode brought to you by our friend Dr. Brett Robin, Austin orthopedic specialist, former Longhorn football player, now has multiple offices in Central Texas. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. We're going to be taking your questions on recruiting for the next 45 minutes or so, up until the top of the hour. Please get your questions in, and we'll try to get to them as quickly as possible. Jerry, I'll let you start for us, because maybe the biggest news of the day seems to be the movement of Kendall Gurville, the big defensive lineman out of Florida that told us just a week ago that Texas was the big leader here. There have been a lot of crystal balls or RPM picks in for Florida in the last 12 hours. It sounds like, from according to a Florida report on 24/7, that the Gators have made a significant increase in their NIL offer, and that may have changed the tide of Kendall Gurville's commitment. He's set to announce on Wednesday. What are you hearing is the latest, Jerry?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it right there. This is one Texas has been leading for a while. And this is one where you feel like you got your teeth kicked in, honestly, because this is one where, I mean, Texas has been a favorite for a while, since I was there early in May, and he's been saying it through all his OVs. But now, we've talked about this. We're getting down to the point where schools are having to look at their current classes and look at what positions are need for them, and where do they really have to go to make some hay. And, that this is one for Florida, apparently, with Trenton Henderson trending heavily to LSU, even though they play different positions on that defensive line. They have the Jarraylen McCoy as a bigger edge. Then they have a big zero-nose 3-star. But Kendall Gurville, suddenly with James Johnson going to Georgia, and even though he's an edge, Trenton Henderson trending away, then Florida's like, well, we got to get something done here. And they went big on Kendall Gurville. So I think Texas is in trouble here, barring a change.
Yeah, I mean, he's a tremendous player. It's interesting because the thought was, well, Florida's going to spend all their money on Henderson, the defensive end out of Pensacola, but now it looks like LSU did that, and there's a ripple effect, so to speak, in the NIL world. And what do you make of this, though, Jerry? This is a situation right now where the Longhorns appear to be coming up short in the NIL game a little bit. Is that, in your opinion, by their own doing?
Yes.
Is it because, in part, they have so many talented players on campus right now, and they want to keep them for 2026? What are your thoughts there?
No, I think, look, I think the SEC doesn't play in recruiting. And I said this when the House settlement came out. Then you're going back to, I jokingly call it car house recruiting. And anybody that thinks the SEC schools that have been playing in the sandbox against each other for 70 years are going to say, oh, we have $17.5 million. That's just too bad, man. Thanks for letting us know we got the spin. Yeah, right. That ain't happening. No chance. No, zero chance that's happening.
I will say this. I mean, and today is the final day of paying out athletes for this calendar year, or this academic calendar. Ends on June 30th, which is today, actually. And I was talking to someone earlier today, and through NIL, Texas paid out more than ever before, than any other year in every single sport in NIL last year. Okay? Look at the results they got in that. Now there's a little bit of a change, and it'll be interesting to see if Texas changes with it, or something happens here and the numbers get a little more interesting, and Texas doesn't quite have the firepower maybe it had a year ago at this time. They're trying to make moves behind the scenes maybe to rectify that, but we'll have to wait and see what that means. Two guys that are coming up and announcing, not only Kendall Gurville, but another name that came up today, Felix Ojo, is announcing on July 4th, So is John Turntine. Cozy Akpala, the linebacker out of Mady Creek, is announcing on Thursday. There's a number of big commitments and choices coming up. Before we get to that and get to your questions, I want to mention this real quick. Special thanks to Dr. Brett Robin at Austin Orthopedic Institute for sponsoring On Texas Football. Dr. Robin, a former Longhorn running back, knows what it takes to stay in the game, and he's here for athletes of all ages. He specializes in musculoskeletal health, treats joint pain and injuries with a conservative approach. But if you need it, he offers advanced surgical options like arthroscopic procedures, fracture management, even total joint replacements. With convenient offices in Austin, Georgetown, and Killeen, Dr. Robin is accepting new patients now. If you're looking for a top-notch orthopedic, give Dr. Robin a call, 512-856-1000. That's 512-856-1000. Get back to your active lifestyle and doing what you love. Thanks, Dr. Robin, the former Texas running back out of Austin Westlake, now a sponsor of On Texas Football. Jerry, I'm talking about this. Let's go over and go ahead and go with Derek Cooper was the next thing I want to talk about. The running back out of South Florida, Chaminade Madonna High School. You reported and broke the news earlier today that Texas is involved now more heavily with Derek Cooper. He was originally set to make an announcement on July 12th of his school choice, but he is delaying that and hopes to visit Texas sometime during the football season.
Yeah, so this is why you only be on ontexasfootball.com. I put this out before all the news broke on social media that Derek Cooper, and I talked to this source close to Cooper as I've been talking with for a while now, and he said that when Cooper put out these not committing on July 12th, well, I called him. I was like, well, what's the deal? And he said, well, he said he's got some more searching to do for the right spot. And I asked him specifically about Texas then, and the source told me, he said, look, Texas has still been talking to him the whole time. Sark likes to do the weekend official visits. And we had mentioned this throughout this process. Texas wanted to bring Cooper in on a weekend official visit in June. And Derek Cooper and his family did not want to cancel a weekend OV of all these schools that have been recruiting him for 2 years, which is understandable. They put in a lot because it's not like we're talking about FAU, okay, NC State in Virginia here. We're talking about Georgia, Miami, Ohio State, Alabama. Schools that have been recruiting him for 2 years, maybe 3 in one case. So they were going to be loyal to the people that have been loyal to them. So I think then Texas didn't want to do a midweek visit, OV. Then what Texas moves to is try to get a kid on campus during senior season. We've seen them do this with a couple other guys. And so that's kind of what the plan is right now. Of course, Derek Cooper will have to maintain where he's at now and get to that point. I think that's the key, is get to that point. And but Texas is trying to get him in, and they've never backed off Derek Cooper, by the way. Just when the June weekend OVs didn't work out, it was going to be a wait till the season thing. And I think they'll do that with 2 or 3 other guys as well, as we mentioned before. But now the move for Texas is to try to get Cooper on campus during the season for a home game, for an official visit. And because, look, at the end of the day, a midweek OV in June does not have nearly the same juice as a in-game season OV will have. And again, that's Sark playing the long game in recruiting, which he does. And that's what you're going to see once again in this cycle, as we've seen every other cycle.
All right. We're going to go to the chat line now and start us off with a super chat from Juan Garza. So what do y'all think Sark is thinking after this loss? So he's not lost yet. Kendall Graville does not announce until Wednesday. So let's wait and see. But we do know Florida has indeed made a big run. Will Sark change, or will he stand pat and be stubborn? I'm going to say this. Being stubborn has worked for him. So how, it's one thing to say and question it. It's another one to call it stubborn if what you're doing is actually working historically. And that's where I think, Juan, a lot of Texas fans are like, they pull their hair out. I get it, because you see guys go to other schools, but in the long run, is that where Sark wants to take this? And I don't know the answer here. I think that they could probably tweak some things, but I don't think they're going to wholesale tweak what they do overall. I just don't think that's going to happen at all. Juan also asked this question. You think teams are looking at Texas and negative recruiting them because telling recruits they don't pay enough? It's not because they don't pay enough. It could be because, frankly, there's some really good players already on campus. That's how you negative recruit.
Yeah, I personally don't think that's part of it. If that's why, the reason is why is Georgia getting guys. So that ain't it. That's not it.
Yeah. All right, Josh Manning. We haven't had a recruit kid commit since my kid was born. Is he a mooch? Thanks for the levity, Josh. Appreciate it, buddy. Jerry Felix Ojo. Let's talk about him now. Connor Vaughn says OSU boards, Ohio State boards, are buzzing about Ojo now as well. After Damari Simeon announced for the Buckeyes on Friday, Ojo down to Texas, Michigan, Ohio State, and Florida, I believe, and he just announced that he's going to decide or announce his decision on Friday. Is that one just one of those we're going to have to wait and see what happens? Is there going to be last-minute maneuvering by a school or two?
I've been hinting at that this was a possibility for the last few days. You guys that follow us know I was kind of waiting to see what he was going to put out, but July 4th is his birthday. And I'd said that on numerous occasions that could be a date to look at with him as far as an announcement, and that is what has transpired now. Look, a week ago it was Texas and Ohio State, right? Now he's included 4 schools in it. But look, I mean, this is where I've said Texas should have a good week this week. If they don't have a good week this week, then there is going to be some head scratching going on, because Gerville was a lean to Texas for a long time. Kosi Okpala is, who announces on the 3rd. John Turntine has been, or Texas has been right there for 2 years now. He's on the 4th. And then Ojo, who Texas has been doing well with, is on the 4th. What'll be interesting to me with Ojo and Turntine, I've just always, and I'm not saying this is info, it's different than when I told you guys, Xavier Griffin and Atkinson will not go to the same school. I was point blank told that. So that I expected that. This is just me kind of, will both these guys actually commit to the same school? We'll see in time what happens.
Yeah, I get it. Daniel, with a question. My theory is that Sark plays the long game in NIL. Figure out what you need to spend to fill your gaps after you know what the NIL cost is for each player. That's optimistic of me, though. I think it may be optimistic of you, but I do think there's some truth to that. I mean, historically, during the NIL era, Texas has played that game, the long game, Daniel, and played it to understand what the market looked like before, everything got put to bed with signing day the first week in December. What do you think of this thought process that Daniel has, Jerry?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not arguing with what Sark has done in recruiting. He's had 4 straight top 5 classes in a row, number 3 and a number 1. That can make a June and July tough at times. But I do think Texas Sark likes to see where the lay of the land is. And look, I had another college coach tell me this, by the way. This isn't just Texas. I had another SEC assistant I know tell me over the weekend, what was that, Saturday, that when a player commits to a SEC school, the other SEC schools that are still in it, they don't mind that. They actually at times they like that. And that's just what you have to buckle up for in recruiting. And there will be multiple guys like that for Texas. They're not like, look, I said the other day, Malachi Lee, Texas will stay on. Xavier Crowell, Texas will stay on. If Gerville goes to Florida, Texas will definitely stay on him. There's going to be some of those guys that Texas is going to stay on. They'll find a way to get them to campus during the season, see where the chips fall in December. James Johnson being another one.
Yep. William Bloodworth, Derek Cooper visiting, sweet. But I'm also a fan of adding Davion Gross. That's the running back / receiver type out of the Metroplex. too if we somehow added Cooper, no matter how small. We've seen weirder Richard Wesley and Justice Terry. Those are two that certainly Texas wasn't the favorite for. What are your thoughts on Davion Gross, Jerry, the young man?
Texas has just never shown interest in him for whatever reason. Look, he does a lot of wide receiver workouts with margin hooks. So I'm not, just not a player Texas has shown any interest in. Talented kid, but they obviously have a reason on their end. I wanted to bring something up because I want to make sure the board understands this. It was from LL. With Calicut going to Georgia, does Texas shift their focus to Devon Benjamin? Look, this isn't a sour grapes league. I tell people when Texas is all in on players. James Johnson, Malachi Lee, Xavier Crowell, didn't get him. Leading up to the last 2 or 3 days leading up to Calicut's decision, that wasn't the case. Devon Benjamin's always been the guy. Now Texas trails Oregon, and we'll see if they can if they can win out. But Devon Benjamin's always been way ahead in that race. Just so people know the real deal. That's not the case on James Johnson, Malachi Lee, Xavier Crowell. Wouldn't be the case on Kendall Gerville if he goes to Florida. Calicut's not in those guys' category.
Fair enough. Benjamin also apparently interested in Michigan, we're hearing of late, Jerry. Michigan's been on a little bit of a recruiting run the last couple of weeks as well. All right. What about taking a step back? Derek Best asked, could this class be smaller than past classes? They're at 15 right now. I mean, just 2 weeks ago, you and I, Jerry, were talking about them getting to 28. They're not going to get to 28 doing it this way right now, I don't think. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the plan is not for a smaller class. So we'll see where that goes during the season. But the plan is not – I mean, look, there's a need for 3 linebackers, 4 or 5 DBs. People can count the numbers, 1 or 2 tight ends, 1 or 2 running backs. It's been 2 running back classes the last 3 years, 3 or 4 wide receivers. That offensive line class is going to be 5 or was going to be 5. The numbers were there. They just started getting hit a little bit right now.
Okay. Josh B. Manning says, Florida is notorious for overpaying interior defensive lines. See Joseph Mbaktu from last year, who was committed to Texas for a couple of days, then switched to the Gators. This is a panic play, according to Josh. Do you think that's the case? I mean, Mbaktu was very talented, but also a high-risk, high-reward type of player. Kendall Gerville is more of a known quantity, in my opinion. I don't know if it's a panic play. I don't know that I would call it that. I think it's them going down their list after Henderson likely goes elsewhere. What do you think, and what do you make of it, Jerry?
No, I think Florida, for sure, on Gerville feels like this is a major need for them, and it is. They feel like they need to do everything they can to win this in state. So I think in Mbaktu at the time, Florida was struggling on D-line in terms of the depth they wanted in that class and some of their guys. Look, they couldn't flip Myron Charles. He stuck with Texas. So I see some similarities there. I think Gerville's a better football player right now. I think I will say this, and y'all know I don't care where kids go. If Joseph Mbaktu maximizes his talent, that dude may be a 1st or 2nd round pick one day. He is gifted.
Yeah. All right. Andy, thank y'all for all the questions you're putting in. I'm trying to get to as many as we can in this kind of rapid fire session for everyone on recruiting. Talking ball here on Monday night, brought to you by our friend Dr. Brett Robin. Andy asks, are you guys worried now about offensive line recruiting? Well, Texas has 2 commitments. Nicholas Robertson, the guy they loved from the outset, out of Klein, an interior offensive lineman. Max Wright out of Melissa, another guy they've liked from the outset. But we thought they were going to get 4 or 5. Right now, they have 2 more offensive tackles on the board in John Turntine and Felix Ojo. If they don't get both of those, they're going to come up a player short from this initial list, at least on this go in June, July time period. What are you worried about offensive line recruiting? Is it time to rethink the board? I mean, what are your thoughts here, Jerry?
I'm not on offensive line recruiting. I think Texas has really good depth. on the offensive line. And now they need look, if Turntine and Ojo both went elsewhere, I might have a different answer. Or if one of those guys, if Texas gets one of those guys, I think they're a pretty good spot. But I don't think the class will end with 3 if that's the case. And I'm not saying it can't be 4 right now, but I'm just saying if they get one of those guys, I don't think it's ending with 3. I'll say that. Texas is going to keep recruiting guys that have committed elsewhere they really like.
I'm watching John Turntine's film, and every time I watch him, I am just amazed that anybody would think he would play anywhere but tackle.
He's a tackle all the way.
I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like, where do they think he's – somebody has him ranked as an interior offensive lineman, Jerry.
And people like Nick Brooks ranked as an interior offensive lineman last year.
He's got the best feet of any of the offensive linemen, in my opinion, that we've looked at. Maybe I was trying to think who had – another guy we looked at had really good feet the other day. I can't remember who it was. But anyways, John Turntine being watched here. He's going to announce on July 4th as well. Yeah. Kyle Flood has made him a priority from the get-go. If that goes somewhere other than Texas, that could be an issue. All right, DJ, Kirby Smart is on a heater right now. DJ, I got to be honest. I think Kirby Smart's been on a heater for 5 years. What do you think, Jerry? 5 or 6 years for Kirby Smart when it comes to – has he finished outside the top 3 in recruiting in the last 5 years?
Somebody can look it up, but I don't think Georgia's finished outside the top 5 or 6 in 8 years, 7 years.
Yeah, so
look, I've said
whether or not Kirby Smart's on a heater, it's how long has the heat been on?
I've said for a while in this show, and it's not possible, but I'm going to continue to give my real opinion. Georgia's the best recruiting job in America because you have the most talented big city in America, an hour and a half from your campus in your home state, and you have the Carolinas to the east, and you have Florida to the south, and you have Alabama to the west. Then you have the ability to go recruit nationally. There is not a program right now that is centered in a better spot in recruiting than Georgia is. Your job at Georgia is a difficult one, though, because you really have to evaluate when there's only 2 in-state schools, Georgia and Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech's not going to win many of those high-level recruitments. Then you have to turn a lot of really good players down. It's not like in the state of Texas where Oklahoma and A&M and y'all are all fighting over some of the same guys, and those guys have in LSU 3.5 hours, some from the Golden Triangle even closer than that. It's a different game in Georgia. You have to really mess up an evaluation not to have 35 NFL players on your roster, in my opinion.
All right, a couple more questions as we're getting ready here to go deeper in it. Low JN has a question. What's the biggest need for Texas in recruiting? Missing a running back doesn't seem too pressing this year to me. Maybe not, but man, so this is interesting to me. When I think of Texas's biggest needs in recruiting, sometimes it's individual positions. You know what it is for me? It's just keep the train on the track right now. Keep recruiting elite, high-level players across the board so that you continue to have a top 5 roster. Because that's what Texas has right now. They have a top 5 roster in college football. And if you tinker around that level, you're going to be in the national championship conversation. So low JN, it's not so much. I mean, some years there are, hey, we got to have a quarterback or we got to have a pass rusher, et cetera. Some year there are definitely those guys. I think right now with Texas, they've transitioned into we just need more good players at an elite level that can help us win a championship. And they need to keep recruiting the Richard Wesleys of the world, for example, and go out and find them and bring them in. That's my opinion.
And I think positionally, and I agree with that. I think positionally, Texas needs to hit on linebackers this year. I mean, not that, and I think they have the best group of linebackers that I've seen, maybe most talented, versatile, big, fast, strong group I've seen at Texas in my years doing this. But this is a big linebacker class because 2 years ago, Ty Anthony Smith was the only high schooler. Last year, it was Bo Barnes and Jonathan Cunningham, and I love all 3 of those guys. But Texas needs to find a way into 3 high school linebackers in this class. They need a development class here. So that is a big one for me. Obviously, defensive front is big in this class, and Texas has been focused on that, even though they've lost a couple here, or potentially a couple. They've lost one that they really, really wanted. I think defensive front's a big one. I think offensive tackle's a big one in this class, though. Texas has really good depth, but what happens if Trevor Guzby blows up and goes pro this year?
Yeah.
I mean, so there's a couple things out there. What if I'll just throw a scenario. What if Brandon Baker ends up being your starting right tackle as expected, and Brooks is your backup left and right? Somebody could transfer out in that scenario. So there's a couple of things in play there. Texas needs to hit on a couple more offensive tackles in this class.
All right. Hey, our producer Matt did us a favor behind the scenes. Georgia has not been outside the top 5 in recruiting since 2017.
Since Kirby got there.
Yeah, that'll be basically 9 consecutive years if you include this year. So DJ, it's not so much that Kirby Smart is on a specific heater right now. He's stayed on fire since he got the job, it feels like. Peyton Ross, sorry if I pronounced that name wrong, Peyton. Is Texas not spending heavy right now in recruiting because they've overspent so much on the current lineup that they can't afford high school recruits plus roster retention after this year? There may be some elements of truth to that, some kernels of truth to that. I think that, you're going to want to keep Ryan Wingo next year. And if you go and spend $1 gazillion on a high school wide receiver right now, that's going to mean less, most likely, for Ryan Wingo and Emmett Mosley and maybe DeAndre Moore. Same can be said on the defensive line. There's some element of having such a talented roster right now that it's hard to quantify what value a freshman will bring to your roster compared to bringing back a junior or senior.
I think there's some of that for sure. And I think, just being real, I think the other part of it is, if you're recruiting, I'm going to throw something out from the early 2000s. If you're recruiting somebody and their dad's a roofer and he gets 40 new roofing jobs, you aren't getting that player. If you're recruiting in the SEC region. I'm just here to tell you.
Yeah.
Because the 17.5, the 20 million is one number. That ain't stopping people.
Fair enough. What does July look like for our team? Mal Wow asked. When does fall camp start? Starts at the end of July, early August. Will be when that begins. The SEC Media Days will be 2 weeks from today. Jerry, myself, Jeff Howe, as well as CJ Vogel, Matt Hutchison, our producer, will all be in Atlanta for a 4-day stretch there, covering the Longhorns and other teams for Media Day. And that kind of sets us to go into what will be practice 2 weeks following that. So it's generally about a month from the first game. Of course, Texas's first game, Mawwow, is on August 30th of this year. All right, Colton has a question for us. Jerry Super Chat. Thank you, Colton. Been missing you guys on Coffee and Football. Work situation just doesn't allow me the opportunity anymore. That's okay, Colton. You got us. How has Xavier Filamy been coming along? Very excited to watch that kid play. That's young man's the safety out of the Metroplex. That was a backup as a true freshman. Could see more of a role this year, Jerry, as a second teamer in our opinion. At least that's what you and I have talked about previously.
I think it's a big August in season for Filamy because look, Zeller-Six and Jonah Williams are right behind you. Yep. Zeller-Six was having a really good spring, and I think he tweaked his back, slowed him down a little bit. Obviously, Jonah was just in some meeting rooms, didn't take part in spring football, but now he's part of workouts. So he's getting ready for football full time here. So it's we've talked about this at receiver with Parker Livingstone and Aaron Butler. We talked about it last year with DeAndre Moore and Jonte Cook. Those guys had to hold off some of the guys to transfers that are freshmen behind them. Filamy, those guys are in the same spot now in that class because whether that's Wardell Mack, who had a good spring at nickel, Jordan Johnson-Rebel, Texas really likes, Filamy, who had some nicked up stuff during his freshman year. Those guys now are sitting there behind them, have young guys, Grayson Littleton, Hicks, and Jonah Williams. So it's really big summers, August, and early part to the season for those guys to solidify and hold off some really talented young guys behind them. Because if the young guys start working past you, that's when you get into issues at these really talented programs. If you can't hold off the guys a year behind you, that's when it gets tough.
I completely agree. Big August for Xavier Filamy. Also, Jordan Johnson-Rebel, not dissimilar in that way. Hey, Justin Yarbrough, I saw your super chat. I've already answered that question. If you want, because I just answered about when fall camp starts. If you want to ask another one, just put it in there, and we'll make sure we get to it in this episode. Splendid Daddy, my therapist said I'd be a much happier person if I stopped following recruiting. So I fired her.
Nice.
You made the right decision, Splendid Dad. I'm kidding. Look, for people that are I want to say this, okay? Nobody takes recruiting as seriously as I do. Okay? Nobody. Now, maybe there's some people that are as serious, right? But nobody does it more. I would say this, and I say it often. Look, you're going to win some and lose some, and that's just the way it is. That's the way recruiting's been forever. What has happened under Steve Sarkisian is we've gotten used to winning a lot of big name recruiting battles. I mean, they had the number one recruiting class. Same thing happened with Mac Brown, by the way, early in his tenure. And then you start losing some of these battles, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. This isn't supposed to happen. The good times are always supposed to be rolling, and you're supposed to get a number one class. I got to be honest with you. I think that recruiting's fun. Even, I get a little pit in my stomach maybe if somebody picks another school. But the reality of it is you wake up and tomorrow's another day. There's always another prospect. But hopefully Texas picks it up.
I'll follow up that Paul said I fired the same therapist. Yeah. Charlie from 2.5 Men, we all fired the same therapist. Sorry, Jane Lynch.
Hey, GJ says, do you think we can win out on Tyler Atkinson if it comes down to NIL? I think that's a fair question. We don't know the answer to that, do we?
Look, I think he's been a Georgia lean for a while. Family's originally from North Carolina. It's not like they're Peach State people. They moved in when I think it was in 6th grade, I believe, maybe 7th grade. But I think Georgia's been there the longest in this recruitment. Does Georgia have more linebacker depth? Could that play into it? Not that Atkinson's scared of competition. Great players aren't scared of competition. But do they see a different path along with an NIL possibility? We'll see. But that one's like Justice Terry to me. I'll say no until that happens.
Football junkie. How many players going to SEC media guys for the university? 3 players from each team. Arch Manning will be one of those, according to published reports. I'm sure there will be others. I would be surprised if Anthony Hill is not one. And then beyond that, I mean, could it be Colin Simmons? Could it be Michael Taft? Who's it going to be for the Longhorns? We'll have to wait and see.
You figure it'll be Arch, Taft, and Anthony Hill if it's 3, right?
Right. Yeah. And it is expected to be 3. So, hey, Colby TS says, in the same vein, are Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama facing the same issues? It's not like they have cheap costing players. I will say this, Ohio State is more similar to Texas right now than Georgia or Alabama, because Georgia and Alabama did not have the same level of NIL commitment that Ohio State and Texas did. Not as an overall team. And part of that has to do with where Georgia started and Alabama started, by the way, when the NILs began. They were already collecting and developing talent for the NFL. Ohio State and Texas were 2 of the most aggressive teams in the portal or in NIL through recruiting. So, Colby, yes, they are a little bit. Ohio State's a little bit like Texas. Georgia and Alabama a little bit different, I think.
I want to hit this on Zane Petty. Turrentine's weight is why Texas fans are questioning it, which I've said before. I just whatever. I'm not even slightly worried about that with John Turrentine. The national guys, it's because they're trying to pin him in a 6'3.5" box. But what they're failing to count for is the guy's got an 81-inch wingspan or 82, 10-inch hands, great feet, elite athleticism, and a nastiness and a real intelligence. They're all missing on John Turntine. I can't help.
I don't think. Hey, I want to say this. I don't think Texas fans are necessarily doing that. I think some Texas fan sites
maybe
doing that and leading them astray, just like some Texas fan sites told us that Kelvin Banks would never play left tackle. The same ones doing that, in my opinion. So, anyways, our Arrowkits 27. Is there a chance we get Guzby and Bell brothers in football and basketball over the next few years? Would be kind of cool. We had Raja Bell on this morning on Coffee and Football. He talked about his younger brother playing his younger son, is a highly ranked basketball player to go along with Bell, the quarterback, who's already committed. And then you have Trevor Guzby, the Texas starting left tackle, as well as his younger brother, Austin, who's in the class of 2026 that may or may not end up at Texas as well.
Look, Austin Guzby, if the recruitment ended the day, I think it comes down to Texas and Duke, with Texas as a slight leader. But he's got a number of official visits. BYU could have the highest NIL out there for Guzby. We'll have to see. But he's going to make a number of visits. I think UCLA will get one. Miami will get one. There's a couple others that are potentially scheduled. But I still think this comes down to Texas, Duke, BYU, barring a change. And changes can always happen. Ty Bell, too early. He's a 2028, but he's got about 7 or 8 offers. FSU, a lot of those schools. It's only a matter of time until a few others offer him. But Austin Guzby will be very interesting. Texas starting to set up OVs for basketball, September OVs. Bryson Howard, son of Josh Howard's coming in. Guzby is coming in. There's a couple others that are coming in. Texas just offered a 6'11", 300-pound monster 2 days ago in the 26 class that will dunk on your face. So they're continuing to make offers in 26. Again, the live period for basketball starts next Wednesday or July 9th. That'll be Adidas in Rock Hill. Then there'll be Peach Jam right after that. Under Armour, Puma, they'll all have their circuits. But that live period coming up starting July 9th is a big one, as Texas, they could throw out 2 or 3 other 26 offers here. But I love Darian Rippey, the 5-star point guard, has an OV now as well. I love the guys Sean Miller and them are on now, with the understanding it may be a 2 or 3 man high school class. And we'll have to see where that all goes through NIL, because some of these, I really believe some of these high school kids are going to price themselves out with some universities in NIL from a high school perspective. I really could see that coming in basketball this year.
Low JN, as we get close to wrapping this up tonight, Low JN says, I think we need an OTF recruit list yearly, kind of like the old Austin Fab 55, but countrywide. That'd be fun. I think Jerry and I used to do that for a living. We would rank players 1 to 250 every year, and it was quite fun. Buck Travis with a good question. How does SARC evaluate recruiting ROI, return on investment time, and dollars? Looks like we're spending a lot on players we can't land. The can't is a problematic statement there, Buck. They tried. They got close. I mean, the problem I have a little bit, Jerry, is it feels like Texas has been the bridesmaid a little too often. And the problem with recruiting, it's not like, horseshoes and hand grenades. Close doesn't matter. You're first or you're last in recruiting. And there's no difference between second and last in recruiting. And so the question I have is Texas getting, I don't want to say getting played a little bit by some players or agents, but is Texas becoming a stalking horse for some of these other teams to drive up players to drive? I don't know. Something is going on, though, because you don't finish second in 6 consecutive recruitments.
And I want to be clear, but all 6 of those aren't the same.
No. They're all, every one of them's different. Every one of them's different. But
there was a couple of those, if they had gotten big on, they would have won, but they did not. And a couple of previous ones as well. But the ones, again, Malachi Lee, James Johnson, Xavier Crowell, they just got beat on those guys. They were at the number, slightly above the number, in the ballpark right there. Those three, and those are guys you'll see Texas continue to recruit. They just lost on those.
All right, Jerry, a couple more questions here before we get going. Jack Burton, do y'all think the blame and criticism thrown Chad Scott's way by Longhorn fans is premature and unreasonable? Or is there some that is reasonable? I mean,
we're a year removed from Kenny Baker. People saying it's wondering about Kenny Baker in D-line recruiting. I personally know. I think that here's the tough thing, and I do think recruiting is transactional, due in large part right now. But I do think a relationship still matters in terms of getting the visit you want, getting on in front of those parents when you need to, right? Having that rapport with the circle of a prospect. Chad Scott, I think you'll see totally different in the 27 class versus 26. The same thing Kenny Baker went through when he got to Texas from the NFL. Chad Scott came from West Virginia. He wasn't recruiting Derek Cooper. He wasn't recruiting Xavier Crowell. He wasn't recruiting KJ Edwards. He didn't have a year or two relationships with those guys. And Kenny Baker battled the same thing last year when he came in. And he hadn't, because he went from Western Kentucky to the NFL. He hadn't been recruiting Myron Charles and Josiah Sharma and all those guys very long at all. And I think that Texas had to play some catch up on some guys there. And I think Chad Scott's in a similar position. And now you've seen more so once these guys have a time to build their own board that next year, recruit their own guys, cast their own net, you start to see a little difference.
Fair enough. All right, before we go any further, I got one more question we're going to get to. I want to say thank you once more to Dr. Brett Robin at Austin Orthopedic Institute for sponsoring On Texas Football's Talkin' Ball on Monday nights. Dr. Robin, a former Longhorn running back, knows what it takes to stay in the game, and he's here for athletes of all ages, specializing in musculoskeletal health. Dr. Robin treats joint pain and injuries with a conservative approach first, but also offers advanced surgical options, including arthroscopic procedures, fracture management, and total joint replacements. With convenient offices in Austin, Georgetown, and Killeen, Dr. Robin is accepting new patients now. If you're looking for a top-notch orthopedic, give Dr. Robin a call, 512-856-1000. That's 512-856-1000. Get back to your active lifestyle and doing what you love. All right, the final question for tonight, guys, is this one. Adam Riggs asks, is the book out on Texas recruiting among recruits? Like, commit to another school knowing that Texas will come in big at the end. No, what Jerry's saying is Texas isn't necessarily going to do that and didn't do that with a number of recruits already. So you don't know for sure who you are necessarily. I guess you find out a little bit, but Texas, I think the book is out a little bit, and that's what but not the way you're saying it, Adam. I think the bigger issue is this: are some people using Texas as a stalking horse? I don't know if they are or they aren't. I'm not privy to that information. I think that they're somewhat genuinely interested in Texas.
Oh yeah.
You don't finish second in 6 straight recruitment. That doesn't feel right. Something's amiss there. Not sure what it is exactly. That's where I'm at with that. All right, Jerry, you have anything before we let folks go here?
No, I don't. Look, I said at the beginning of the week, if Texas doesn't have a good week in recruiting this week, then we have different conversations, because then so let's see what happens the rest of this week. The week did not start off great. I will say that with Kendall Gravel, the news today. And we'll see. He has to announce on Wednesday, but it's definitely trending Florida. And we'll see what happens the rest of the week for Texas. But they need to have a good week. I'm not you guys know in the chat, I'm not sugarcoating anything. They need to have a good week. Because at some point you have too many guys to make up ground on senior year.
Yeah, I agree. All right, I want to say special thanks to Justin Yarbrough. Justin, sorry I didn't ask that super chat. You are due one next go round, if you don't mind, buddy. So please get that in. All right. Thank you, Jerry Hamilton. Thank you, Matt Hutchinson, behind the scenes. And thank you to our sponsor, Dr. Brett Robin. And most of all, thanks to all the Texas fans out there that tuned in today. Trying to bring you news as quickly as we can as it relates to recruiting. We'll continue to do so tomorrow morning. Coffee and Football starts at 8:15 a.m. Please join us. Also, Recruiting Breakdown tomorrow as well. And also, please consider a subscription to ontexasfootball.com, $39.95 annually if you use the promo code OTFOG. Peyton Ross. Oh, one last one. I didn't see this. What's keeping colleges from hiring every LLC in the phone book to funnel cash through to pay more players, and then the players just not reporting all of it? Theoretically, that's illegal. That would be against NCAA rules. That's what's keeping. But to Jerry's point, if there's a dad that's a roofer out there and gets all of a sudden gets 30 roofing jobs, I'm not sure how you manage that.
That's the way recruiting's been done in the South for many years.
All right, guys, that's going to do it. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning, 8:15 for Jerry and Matt. You guys have a good night. Hook 'em horns.